Everyone to tonight's meeting of the Services Delegated Committee. Before we commence the meeting, I request that all mobile telephones are turned off or switched to silent. Thank you. Given the recent changes to the COVID-19 restrictions, councillors are able to be present for the meeting this evening. The meeting is being live streamed on the council website to enable the community to view the proceedings. Should we encounter technical problems during the meeting will be adjourned until the problem is rectified, or if needed, the meeting will be postponed. I'm Councillor Jane Addis, Chair of this committee. I'll start by introducing my fellow councillors and officers. Seated to my left at the horseshoe table in the council chamber are Councillor Jim Park, Councillor Susan Bigger, Councillor Cynthia Watson, Councillor Nick Stavrou, Councillor Felicity Sinfield, and then carrying on around the table we have Councillor Lisa Hollingsworth, Councillor Wes Gold, Councillor Di Gillies, our Mayor, Councillor Gary Thompson, and Councillor Victor Franco. The officers in attendance tonight: to my immediate right, Mr Philip Storer, our Chief Executive Officer. To my left and behind Councillor Stavrou, Miss Carolyn McLean, Director of Community Support, and Mr Daniel Freer, Director Places and Spaces. And then to my right and behind Councillor Gold, we have Mr Bruce Dobson, Director Customer and Transformation, and Mr Sharan Wickramasinghe, Director Urban Living. To my immediately left, Mr David Thompson, Manager Governance and Legal, and to his left, Elizabeth Manu, Senior Governance Officer. And there will also be a number of other staff members in attendance this evening to assist us. The purpose of the Services Delegated Committee is to deal with issues relating to the provision of human and physical services and Council's infrastructure. For those in the gallery presenting this evening, if we have any, when we come to the agenda item, it will be introduced by an officer, and I will then call you one by one to come forward and address Council. When making a submission, you are requested to present your viewpoint clearly and concisely on why you agree or disagree with the proposal. You may suggest an alternative approach which could satisfy you. If you could not repeat what earlier speakers have said and keep the discussion focused on relevant issues. There is a limit of 3 minutes for each speaker, and that includes councillors. I'll ask speakers to come forward to the lectern, and we invite those against the item to speak first, followed by those in favour. At the 2-minute mark, I'm going to have to use the glass because we don't have a bell, so at the 2.5 minute mark, I'll indicate it by tapping the glass that you have 30 seconds remaining and need to conclude your presentation. And after you have spoken, if you could please remain while we see if any councillors have a question for you. So the first item is apologies. Mr Thompson, are there any apologies for this evening?
Through you, Madam Chair, we have no apologies for this evening.
Thank you, Mr Thompson. Item 1, adoption and confirmation of the minutes of the Services Delegated Committee held on 7 December 2020. Councillors, could I have a motion to adopt and confirm the minutes? Now, was it Councillor Thompson who was first? It was Councillor Park who was first. Sorry, new equipment. Thanks. You happy to move?
So moved.
Thank you. And seconder, Councillor Thompson?
Happy to second, thank you.
Thank you. Could I check if anyone is opposed to the motion? No. So, Councillor Park, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. As no one's against, I'll declare that motion carried. Thank you. Declaration of conflict of interest of any councillor or council officer. Councillors and council officers, are there any conflicts of interest that need to be declared? Councillor Bigger, you have a conflict of interest to declare?
Yes, Chair, I do on matter 3.2.
Thank you. So we'll come to that when we get to that item. Thank you. And that'll be recorded in the minutes. Thank you.
Sorry, through you, when we get to that particular item, Councillor Bigger will disclose what the nature is, and then we'll record that in the minutes.
Thank you. Now we'll go to presentation of officer reports. 3.1, update to Borondara Community Safety Advisory Committee terms of reference, and we have Miss Fiona Brown, Manager Community Planning and Development, to present a report to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening. So the purpose of this report is to seek Council's endorsement for the proposed changes to the terms of reference for the Burundara Community Safety Advisory Committee, and these are highlighted in track changes in attachment 1. The Burundara Community Safety Advisory Committee assists Council by providing advice on identifying, articulating and responding appropriately to new and emerging community safety issues in the community. It also provides feedback on the action planning process that aligns with community needs and the Burundara Community Plan strategic objectives. The committee provides an opportunity for members to be able to plan in partnership and in an integrated way to enhance community safety. The changes presented tonight reflect the updated and current committee membership and the continued opportunity for integrated work across agencies and provision of expert advice to Council, as well as minor administrative changes. So the recommendation before you is up on the screen, and that is that the Services Delegated Committee resolve to endorse the updated terms of reference for the Burundara Community Safety Advisory Committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms Brown. I'll just check. I don't believe we have any speakers. That's correct. So, councillors, are there any questions for Ms Brown? Councillor Sinfield, you're prepared to move a motion?
When the time's right, no questions.
And Councillor Hollingsworth, did you have a question? Or?
Look, thank you, Madam Chair. I actually wanted to propose an alternate motion with some minor amendments. So I just wanted to foreshadow that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? No, so Councillor Sinfield, you foreshadowed you would like to move a motion. Would you like to hear what Councillor Hollingsworth is suggesting as an alternative? Okay, maybe you. Okay. You were going to, I'm sorry, I assumed you were going to move the motion up on the screen.
That's okay. Yes, I am prepared to move the officer's recommendation and the motion that is on the screen, but I'm certainly happy to hear from Councillor Hollingsworth.
Yeah. Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With regard to the officer's recommendation, on page 9 of the report of terms of reference, if we could just go to clause, sorry, I'll just put my glasses on. With regard to organisation, will be selected on the basis of, there was the word there of the nature of the service they provide to Burundara residents. I would propose we change that word to Burundara community. And then the second dot point underneath that is the word resources had been removed, and it's the resources and expertise that the organisation can offer the committee. I would like to leave the word resources in because resource has a myriad of definitions, but it can mean access to staff materials and other services that may not necessarily fit under the guise of expertise, but are still very valuable towards supporting the committee. And then just below that, where it has chairperson, it says the chairperson shall be agreed by the councillor representatives on the committee. If a councillor elects to chair but is unable to attend the meeting, it says the second councillor will be representative. Now, in the case of the committee, we actually have 3 councillors at the moment serving on it. So I would propose that it says the nominated councillor representative shall be appointed as the chairperson rather than automatically second or third. It's hard to distinguish between who that would be. And then under that it says in the absence of a second councillor. So I would just remove the word of a second and just in the absence of councillor representative, the committee members shall appoint a chairperson for the purpose of conducting the meeting. So they're minor word changes, but I just think they hold a little bit more validity. Thank you.
To assist them, yellow on the screen.
Thank you. I've just been reminded that to assist, these are in yellow on the screen. Councillor Sinfield, did you get all of that, and were you comfortable with those changes and you'd be happy to incorporate them into your motion?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, with the exception of the resources and not wanting to draw officers into debate, if the officers are comfortable with those changes, then I'm happy to move a motion that that articulates the administrative changes that don't change the intent of the terms of reference or something similar, if governance could assist.
So I'm seeing
Yes,
Ms. Fra-
officers are fine with that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Do we need to pause to get those alterations up on the screen, or?
Sorry. First of all, we need a seconder. Secondly, we understand what the intent is, so that's the reason why the motion's written in that form,
Okay.
which we will then incorporate.
Okay, so Councillor Hollingsworth, you're presumably happy to second. You've got your light on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, thank you.
And I've been told that the motion up on the screen incorporates the potential for those changes, so doesn't need to be amended. Is anyone opposed to that motion for the benefit of the mover and seconder?
Chair, I'm not opposed, but I would appreciate just seeing that previous screen for a fraction longer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the changes are community. It's a bit confusing, isn't it?
I think the Chair, under the heading chairperson, I'm finding that second paragraph to be confusing. There's 3 councillors as it's constituted at the moment, one of whom is the chair. In the absence of that person, it would be one of the others. I must say it's never been an issue, but if a councillor elects to chair but is unable to attend a meeting, I think if it just said another councillor, because the meeting wouldn't proceed in the absence of any councillor. If none of the 3 are there, there wouldn't be a meeting. So I think the word another would, if the mover and seconder would consider that, I think it just might flow a bit better.
I'm seeing general nods. Councillor Hollingsworth, are you comfortable with the change that Councillor Park?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, absolutely, I'll be guided by the mover of the motion and what the preference is. Thank you.
Okay, can I just confirm that everyone is now comfortable and understands what we're suggesting? Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I understand the point in the debate that we are in, but maybe I'd seek some governance advice about should we perhaps suspend standing orders, because I'd like to seek a little bit of clarity about the intended and the unintended consequences of the removal of the word resources and now the putting back in of the word resources. I just don't have any understanding or clear understanding of why it was taken out and why it goes in and what difference does that make.
Councillor Watson, would you like to move a motion to briefly suspend standing orders?
Mr Thompson, is that the correct way to proceed in this instance for me to receive that advice from officers?
Through you, Madam Chair, strictly given that we're in debate at the moment on this particular motion, good governance would suggest that we suspend standing orders to enable any questions of clarification that you have to be answered by council officers. But
All right,
ultimately,
thank
it's a
you.
decision for the council to make.
Well, I'd like to move a motion to suspend standing orders.
Now, I've got a couple of lights on. Have we got a seconder of that motion to suspend standing orders? Councillor Franco. Just bear with me for a moment. Thank you. So, do we have, you're the mover, Councillor Watson, Councillor Hollingsworth seconder. Is anyone?
Sorry, to assist the meeting, we have a motion moved by Councillor Watson and seconded by Councillor Franco that we suspend standing orders. I suggest that we take a vote on that at the moment, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. So can I have a vote for all those in favour to suspend standing orders? So that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Yep, so standing orders are now suspended. Councillor Watson, you had a query?
Yeah, thank you. I'd just like to seek clarification from officers about why the word resources was removed from the last terms of the last advisory committee terms of reference. Why it? What are the implications of that word coming in and out? I'd just like to have a better understanding of that, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
Ms McLean?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. The reason that we took away the word resources is because this is an advisory committee, and any plans that may fall out in terms of the community safety activities could include resources provided by the organisations that the committee members represent, but may not necessarily result in that same. The focus of the advisory committee is really expertise.
Does that answer your query, Councillor Watson?
Yes, it does, and I think I will foreshadow that I will be opposing that particular amendment and recommend that we stick with the look to amend the motion back to expertise at some point in time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Parr?
Mine's not a question, Chair. I've got a comment when you're ready.
A question? Comment?
Just a comment, yeah.
Will we take that now?
I disagree with Councillor Watson's view on that. And look, this is not an important point, but it now having been raised in debate, I'll address it. Having served on that committee for the last 8 years, I think, a person could be an absolute expert in a relevant field, but have no connection with any other organisation, and therefore their utility on the committee would be limited. The membership of the committee comes from typically representatives of organisations such as, for example, Swinburne, the various health organisations, police service, etc. And by nature of their occupation and their networks, they actually add significant value to the committee and its function. So I think it's true enough to say that those are resources loosely defined, and certainly we've had presentations from others as a consequence of the membership and the individual members on that committee that otherwise we probably wouldn't have got. So my view is that whilst it's certainly not a matter to die in the ditch over, it is actually useful. There's more than one way to look at this, and I think that on balance, we're better with the word in than with it out.
Thank you, Councillor Park. Councillor Franco?
A minor question in relation to the second paragraph under chairperson, the further amended version from Councillor Hollingsworth. Would it not be simpler to simply have replace the word nominated or second with simply a councillor representative? That way, wouldn't it flow better with the third paragraph as well, in the absence of a councillor representative? Is that not what is being sought?
Okay. Any other, maybe once we've gone back out into normal procedure, we can check with the mover and seconder. Question, Councillor Hollingsworth, or comment?
Look, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a comment. Just wanted to explain that there was an email circulation that I believe may not have been seen, so I apologise if this is presenting to some not to have been aware of it. Unfortunately, I didn't have the opportunity to discuss this with everyone prior to the meeting this evening. But just following on from Councillor Park's comment with the word resources, the reason why I felt there would be merit in retaining it in the terms of reference is for the same reasons, because, as I said, the resource can be an internal resource as well as an external. And by virtue of having staff attending meetings, in essence, is a resource. So it could be valuable within Burundara's own team of people to leave the word there. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I think we've exhausted the queries. Could I have a motion to resume standing orders? Councillor Sinfield?
So moved, Chair.
And a seconder, Councillor Thompson? And I presume no one's against that? So I'll declare that carried and that we resume standing orders. Now, I think we need to go back to the mover and seconder to just check if they want to stick with their original, where we ended up with the motion, if we can work out what that is at this stage.
Thanks, Chair. Happy to speak to those proposed by Councillor Hollingsworth, and I'm happy to incorporate those in the motion as put. As far as resources is concerned, I really think it's a non-issue. It's served us well having that word in there for the last 4 years, and while I was content with officer advice, I'm content with the revised officer advice that it's a non-issue putting that word back in. Resources being human or otherwise, and I think that expertise can come in many forms. That we've got the ability also to bring in a guest presenter or a guest to that meeting should we need the advice otherwise. So I'm happy to proceed on that basis.
Councillor Hollingsworth, you're comfortable to remain the seconder?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes.
Is anyone against the motion? No. Councillor Sinfield, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thanks, Chair. I think it's essentially been all said and put around the table. I don't feel the need to get stuck in the weeds. As being chair of this committee for the last 4.5 years, it's an exceptional committee and one that I feel serves the community very well. It's one of the most productive committees that I have been a part of in my time here on council, and I look forward to the future under these new terms of reference. Thanks to the officers for pulling them together.
Thank you. Councillor Hollingsworth is the seconder.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I reiterate what Councillor Sinfield said, and very honoured to be on the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, we might now put that motion. All those in favour of the motion? And it's up on the screen. Thank you. So I'll declare that motion carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Now we're moving to item 3.2, allocation of the 2020 Round 2 Small Grants Biennial. And I think, Councillor Bigger, you had a conflict of interest to declare?
I do, Chair. I'm a freelance writer, and I have on several occasions submitted articles and had something published by a publication which has applied for a grant.
Thank you. So would you like to leave the chamber now? Thank you. Thank you. So, Ms Fiona Brown, again, you're going to Manager of Community Planning and Development. You're presenting on this item for us. Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So this report before you tonight contains the recommendations of the assessment panel for the 2020 Small Biannual Grants Program Round 2. Small to medium not-for-profit community organisations and groups were able to apply for up to $3,000 under 6 streams. 36 applications were received and the amount requested was $78,422. 32 of these applications were recommended for full or partial funding, totalling $68,134, and they are in attachment 1. Two applications were not recommended for funding and 2 were ineligible, and they are in confidential attachment 2. So the recommendation before the Services Delegated Committee tonight is to firstly endorse the biennial grants funding allocations for Round 2, 2021 of $68,134.55 as outlined in attachment 1, which are annexed to your minutes, and secondly to roll over the unexpended funds of $62,096.45 to the next round, the 2021-22 annual community strengthening grants. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Brown. Are there any questions for Ms Brown? Councillor Watson.
No question, Madam Chair. Just happy to move a motion at the appropriate time.
Councillor Gillies, you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's a matter that I believe might be productive for us to discuss outside of the public meeting. Please.
It relates to the confidential section of the report.
I think so, please.
Okay, so I think I need to seek a motion to close the meeting to the public. Is somebody prepared to move that motion? Councillor Thompson? And I'll put it up on this, we're getting it up on the screen. I'll just give you a few minutes to read it. Now, is somebody happy to move that motion? Councillor Thompson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm happy, for the purpose of our discussion on a confidential item, I'm happy to move that motion on the screen to move into confidential item on that discussion.
And do I have a seconder? Councillor Franco? Is anyone opposed to us moving into confidential? No, so I'll declare that the motion is carried. Now, I declare that the Services Delegated Committee meeting is now closed.
So it's closed to the public, so can you please ask the live streaming to pause?
Yes.
And for those who are watching, we'll come back when we reopen the meeting to the public.
Yep. So we have a request that the live streaming be paused. And then once we've dealt with this section, we'll come back to the public. So can I just confirm that the live streaming has been ceased?
live, so we're now seeking a motion to reopen the meeting to the public.
Thank you. So I believe we're now back live, and what I'm seeking is a motion to reopen the meeting to the public. Councillor Gold, you're moving that motion, and seconded by Councillor Sinfield.
Yes, Chair.
Is anyone opposed to that motion? No, so I'll declare that motion carried to reopen the meeting. Thank you. Now, I think where we're up to is that I'm seeking a motion, and I think Councillor Park, you might have one that might appear on the screen in a minute.
I'm happy to move a motion. The officers are in possession of it. That's my motion, Chair.
Okay, thank you. You're happy with that? And Councillor Sinfield, you've got your light on to second
Happy to second that motion, Chair.
Thank you. Could I check if any, for the mover and the seconder, if anyone's opposed to that motion? No. So as the mover, Councillor Park, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. The motion effectively endorses the allocation of just over $68,000 in biannual grants, and obviously these grants are particularly important in our work with the community, and enable a significant number of organisations to continue their good work. So I'm pleased to move that motion tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Park. As the seconder, Councillor Sinfield, did you wish to?
Thank you, Chair, but it doesn't appear opposed. I'm happy to endorse Councillor Park's comments.
Thank you. So I'll now put that motion that's up on the screen. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Now we've got a couple of councillors to invite back in. We'll just pause for a moment. Thank you, councillors. So we'll now move on to item 3.3 on the agenda, which is submission to the Union Road level crossing removal. We have Ms Claire Davey, Senior Coordinator Transport Advocacy, to present to us. Thanks, Ms Davey.
Thank you, and sorry, apologies. Thank you, and through you, Chair. Councillors, thank you for your time tonight. The purpose of this report tonight is to seek council endorsement of the draft submission to the Level Crossing Removal Project, the LXRP, and Minister for Planning for the Union Road and Mont Albert Road level crossing removals. On 2 December 2020, the Victorian Government announced the fast tracking of the two level crossing removals. They advised works will commence in mid-2021 with early works, generally utility relocation, and the boom gates will be removed by 2023. The rail line will be placed in a trench and will travel under both Union Road and Mont Albert Road. The two train stations, Surrey Hills and Mont Albert, will be removed and combined into one premium station. The new single station will be approximately 150 metres east of the current Surrey Hills station entrance and will be approximately 400 metres west of the current Mont Albert station entrance. It will be located according to the concept plan released by the LXRP within the City of Whitehorse Council area. On the same day as the announcement, the LXRP opened up 3 separate consultation exercises, with each of them closing at 11:59 p.m. on Sunday, 14 February 2021. Happy Valentine's Day. An expression of interest program was opened for the project's community reference group, and invitations were issued to the general public for attendance at the virtual information sessions to be held in February this year. The 3 consultations open are 1, help shape your precinct design, 2, Surrey Hills and Mont Albert local business survey, and 3, Surrey Hills and Mont Albert planning approvals. In order to inform the draft submission to the LXRP and the Minister for Planning, Council officers reviewed the information provided by the LXRP, see attachments 2, 3 and 4 of the report, and met with or spoke on the phone or online with members of the community, stakeholders and many other council officers. The draft submission notes that there is general support for the removal of the dangerous level crossing at Union Road, and also notes there are concerns about elements of the proposal. These concerns relate to 5 items, being number 1, the consolidation of the 2 existing train stations into one station and the accessibility issues this generates, along with the potential inequitable provision of passenger amenities at the station. 2, the impacts to the community, including residents, traders, sporting groups and other community groups through construction and operation. 3, the impact to Surrey Hills as a place with heritage, history and very strong connections to its past. 4, tree and vegetation loss, including biodiversity impacts. And 5, the lack of high quality, direct and future-proofed walking and cycling infrastructure. So in addition to those 5 points, clause 52.03 of the Burundara planning scheme also raises concerns and issues. The clause gives the LXRP the right to seek planning approvals for the level crossing removals directly from the Minister for Planning. It requires the preparation of a consultation report which will inform the Minister's assessment of and decision about the project. The draft submission includes details about various elements of the planning scheme clause, most notably the planning project boundary. The planning project boundary includes all roads and land the LXRP consider they need for the project. It includes many local streets in Surrey Hills and Canterbury. Most of these streets are, as you may know, narrow. They have parking on both sides and have limited vertical height clearance because of the really well-established street trees in the area. By including the local streets in the planning project boundary, the LXRP can obtain the right to use them for construction-related traffic movements and construction-related parking. Both actions would be quite detrimental to the residents. The Canterbury Sports Ground is one of 2 sports grounds included in the planning project boundary. Surrey Park in Box Hill in Whitehorse is the other. The LXRP has chosen not to detail the purpose for the sports grounds, and we can only assume, based on other level crossing removal projects, they intend to use the ground as a construction laydown area, a site compound and/or a material stockpile area. The proposed occupation of the Canterbury Sports Ground, no matter the proposed use, is considered to be unacceptable as it will displace 4 sports clubs, a personal trainer, and it will impact on the neighbouring kinder and tennis club. The occupation of the sports ground, proposed occupation of the sports ground, will also have an impact on Council's capital works program, as the pavilion at the ground is scheduled for renewal works in both this and the next financial years. The draft submission seeks to highlight the issues and propose actions the LXRP and Minister for Planning can take and measures they can implement to remove or reduce the impacts of the project. It seeks to focus on the community, the residential, trader, sports communities, and has a strong emphasis on the LXRP engaging and working with the communities, listening and responding to their concerns and issues, and doing so in a manner that's acceptable to the communities and not just the LXRP. It seeks to provide very clear direction and ideas as to what the precinct should look and feel like and how the community should be able to use the space, including capping the trench. The consultation and engagement exercise is managed through Engage Victoria, and submissions addressed to both the Minister for Planning and the LXRP are required by, as I said before, 11:59 p.m. Sunday, 14 February. Thank you, and we're happy to take questions.
Thank you, Ms Davey. I don't believe there are any speakers. Thank you. So, councillors, are there any questions for Ms Davey? Councillor Thompson.
No questions, Madam Chair, but I'm happy to move a motion when the time's appropriate.
I think that might be now. Thank you, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation as listed on the screen, and I'm in search of a seconder, if possible.
Yes. Councillor Bigg, you're happy,
happy
to
to
second the
second
motion?
Yes.
Thank you. For the mover and the seconder, can I just check if anyone's opposed to this motion? No. Councillor Thompson, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll speak briefly and recognise, as you're the ward councillor, you may like to say a few words as well. I'm very happy to move this recommendation to endorse the officer's submission, which captures a number of aspects in our submission relating to our community, the infrastructure, the impact on the traders, walking, cycling, and those amenity impacts that I know will be top of mind for many of our communities in that area. And I think this is really council putting its best foot forward to engage with the LXRP, to work with us on a number of aspects. And obviously the third point is the advocacy to the state government with regard to this as well. And I might hand to you, Madam Chair, if you wish to add.
Thank you very much. I might just first check if our seconder, Councillor Bigger, would like to say anything.
No, I'm happy to hand to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me that opportunity, Councillor Thompson. I'm very impressed with this report. I think officers have done a truly excellent job in capturing very complex issues that are very important to our community. And one of the things that the report talks about is letting us and the community be involved. And what I'm seeing in this report is that it very much reflects that. The things that are handled and addressed are the things that I think we've all heard from the community are very important to them. So I certainly commend Ms Davey and the team for providing such a comprehensive report that does capture the community's concerns. If I could just briefly touch on three of those. The trench cap, Surrey Hills is very low on open space. It's right down the bottom in our municipality, and so I think the notion of the importance of capping the trench in one way or another, which is outlined clearly in this report, is something that's very important to the community and something we've heard from them. The Canterbury Sports Ground, which actually is in Surrey Hills but is called Canterbury Sports Ground, is highly utilised both by sports clubs and the community in general, and there's the kindergarten nearby. So it's going to have a huge impact on a lot of Surrey Hills, really, who congregate in this sports ground to do a whole range of both active and passive sports activities. And then the other thing that I really appreciated was the emphasis that's been placed on the loss of vegetation. And we know that trees are very important to our community, and we also know that they're part of protecting the environment. So I very much appreciate the effort that's been put into this. So with that, Councillor Thompson, as the mover, did you want to wrap up, or did anyone else want to speak? Sorry, I should just check. I don't think anyone else had lights on.
I've got no
Councillor.
further comments, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, everyone. So I'll now put the motion up on the screen. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. So the next item, thank you, Ms Davey. So the next item on the agenda is general business, and I'm seeking whether there are any matters of general business. I believe, Councillor Watson, you have a motion of condolence for the 820 Victorians who passed from the COVID-19 in 2020. Can we put that motion up on the screen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just looking for my notes. They seem to have gone missing. Ah, I found them. Yep.
Councillor Watson, is that the motion you wish to
It is. Thank you, Madam
put
Chair.
to us? I'll just give everyone a moment to read it. I believe, Councillor Thompson, you're happy to...
I'm happy to second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. For the sake of the mover and the seconder, is anyone opposed to that motion? Okay. Councillor Watson, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move this motion of condolence and comfort to express sympathy to all who have lost loved ones from contracting COVID-19. In Australia, 839 fellow citizens lost their lives in 2020 due to contracting COVID-19. In Victoria, we have borne a heavy burden of loss, as 820 of the 839 who died were fellow Victorians. We are saddened that many families, including members of our own community in Burundara, continue to grieve the loss of these beloved souls. COVID-19 continues to afflict countries and communities around the world, and we express our sympathy for the loss and grief which is experienced daily from this continuing worldwide pandemic, and also express our gratitude to the health workers who do an extraordinary job to support the sick and the suffering. I put forward this motion as an expression of support and understanding, and in recognition of the sorrow being experienced by many, both within and without our own community. I move that we stand and have a minute of silence to acknowledge the immeasurable grief and loss that has come to families due to the worldwide pandemic, and express our sympathy to the family and friends of the 820 Victorians who died before their time. I seek your support for this motion this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Thompson, as the seconder, would you like to speak?
Just very briefly to concur with Councillor Watson and support her for bringing this forward for a council to pay recognition. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the motion? No, so I'll put the motion up on the screen. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Now, can I request that we now all stand for a minute's silence? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. And thank you, Councillor Watson, for giving us that opportunity. Councillors, are there any other matters of general business? No. Any matters of urgent business? No. Thank you. Any matters of confidential business? Thank you. There aren't any. So I'll now close the meeting, and thank you all for your attendance. Thank you, everyone, and thank you to the community for your involvement.